joined today by Harry Cruz, professional boxer out of Jacksonville, Florida, and the Dead Game Fight School. Harry, thank you for joining me today.
I'm a pleasure to be here. How are you doing?
Good, man. I'm doing very well. Crazy times, obviously, with the pandemic. You're coming off your latest victory back on October 9th on Boxeo Telemundo versus John Carrion, Puerto Rican fighter. Harry, talk to me about where you were born in your childhood.
Yes, I was born in Fajardo, Puerto Rico. My childhood was pretty normal for a Puerto Rican. I lived there for about 10 years. My parents are both military in the Navy. So when the base closed down in Puerto Rico, we moved to Jacksonville. And when the whole time, my father, he was a Golden Glove boxer himself. So boxing and fighting been trained all my life.
So as far as you learning the sport, your father, you said, was a Golden Gloves fighter, champion. What was your introduction? Just through him, or kind of how did that come about?
Actually, my introduction with combat sport is actually martial art. I started with Kung Fu Wing Chun as a very young age. I started before even boxing. I started with martial arts since I was 6, 7 years old. And I didn't get into boxing until I'm about 13, 14 years old. So I learned how to self-defense first, how to use the whole body, the whole discipline, mechanics first before I really got into the actual boxing.
Wow. So and that came about, your dad brought you to a gym. Was it in Puerto Rico, or was it when you came over to the mainland?
So in Puerto Rico, I mostly did the martial art. And when I came over here into the mainland, it was still the martial art. And I did the Wing Chun for about a couple years until I got into an assistant instructor. Then my father started getting into the boxing. He started teaching me about the boxing, the sport, because I really wanted to kind of go into the MMA, kickboxing professionally, but then realized, those guys don't have very short careers. There's not very long longevity in those kind of sports. So the boxing is more of the technical, more of a fun side, in my opinion, than just a brutal sport compared to MMA or kickboxing.
Yeah, MMA and kickboxing, or MMA in general, is a different animal, as we know.
Correct.
I've seen a lot of kickboxing over the years, and a lot of guys have transitioned from kickboxing into the UFC, Bellator, MMA overall. And it's a tough transition for some of them. Some adjust well. Wrestlers have that base, and so they move into MMA and they transition well once they learn how to box, so to say, and more of the striking. You get those weird matchups with guys that are focused on jiu-jitsu versus a guy that's a striker. Speaking, of that, we have Khabib facing a guy like Gaethje, which happened a few weeks ago. And, talking about that, just from a matchup perspective, it's just so different. So you focused, you said, you know what, I've had enough of MMA, just learning the different arts. Let me focus on boxing.
Correct. I first started with, like I said, Wing Chun, which is hand-to-hand, kind of like Thai boxing, but more close up. In high school, I did wrestling, and also I did judo jiu-jitsu, which is judo and jiu-jitsu put together. So I have a vast knowledge of different arts put together. So when I went to boxing, I already had the experience of striking, so I never had to worry about how to start punching or a correct punch, because everything we learned was without gloves or any hand wraps, so we really know the proper way of doing things. So with that being said, when I just got tired of getting put in arm bars and rear naked chokes, and it's different because people don't realize like, okay, in practice it feels like that it sucks, yeah, but in a real fight someone's going to break something off. Like when you go and do an arm bar, those guys are not going to just stop because they feel the tension. They're going to go all the way. And if you don't know how to prevent that, they're going to break your arm. So I'd rather get punched in the face and get a little bit of cut or blood than someone break my arm completely off.
Yeah, definitely. I agree. It's a different animal. Like we said, there's so many different aspects to mixed martial arts. Now, one of the original founders of Team Apparel Boxing and MMA Gym in San Juan, Puerto Rico, studied Jeet Kune Do. I believe that's how you pronounce it.
Jeet Kune Do is the way.
Jeet Kune Do. I'm sorry.
Yes, it's the way. In English, it's called the way in intercepting fists.
Okay, and that comes from this is Bruce Lee's foundation style of fighting, of mixed martial arts. Excuse me. And actually, Gabriel Amasis, founder also of Team Apparel Boxing and MMA Gym, studied under, I believe he's third generation.
Yes.
So it's interesting you talk about mixed martial arts and your foundation of that in Puerto Rico as that continues to expand. They've talked about a PI going up there for years. We don't know if it's going to happen. We hope one day Dana comes through and they actually build one. It would expand martial arts across the island.
Correct.
Now, because we all know the focus is boxing.
Yes.
And if you look at the population, we'll put this in perspective. A lot of people don't understand this. If you have in Mexico 126 million people, and in Puerto Rico you have 3.1, 3.2, and that rivalry, that's impressive in itself when we're talking from a numbers perspective, how we've dominated the sport.
Correct. And not just that, not just dominant sport in that aspect, but dominant sport in every weight class. We have a champion every single weight class through history. There's not other nationalities can say, I have a champion in every single weight class through history. There's not a weight class we haven't dominated or been champion at one point in time. And it was, again, there's only 3 million of us, and there's probably only a couple hundred boxers throughout the world. So
It's astonishing.
Yes, it
Interesting
is.
you made that point. We're a little on the low end right now. We have a couple guys up and coming as far as world champions. But the future looks bright.
Correct.
We also have my man Harry Cruz in front of me, who's pursuing his professional boxing career. He's 3-1. Again, you train out of the Dead Game Fight School. Talk to me about your amateur career, Harry.
So my amateur career started mostly with martial art and doing kickboxing matches and doing mixed martial amateur fights first. And then I got into the boxing amateur. So I've very short boxing amateur career. I believe is only got six or seven actual amateur fights. And from that, I was like, I started my amateur career pretty late. I started at around 22 years old. So it's pretty late compared to everybody who started younger. But I had all this vast knowledge because of the martial art and experience, the hand-to-hand combat for so many years. And I'm very comfortable in the ring and in front of people. So for me, I'm very comfortable with combat sport. So when I was in the amateurs, I'm like, okay, I like this style, but I know there's more. So, I'm already 20. By the time I was 24, I was like, okay, I need to, transition to the professional side because there's not so much I can do in the amateur side. So I got the fights I needed for the pro side. So I was able to qualify with that to the pro side. And ever since then, I do well, very well. But people that have way more fights than me, 26 national championship, 26, 28 fights, and I, beat them without even, batting an eye. And that's just because of my previous experience, just because of my heart and just my discipline because of the mixed martial art to just, keep working, keep training, where a lot of the other boxers might not have the same level or type of discipline.
Definitely, you have a motor. I've watched a few of your fights. You made your professional boxing debut this year in February on Boxeo Telemundo, and that's a huge deal in itself. A lot of guys making their pro debut on Boxeo Telemundo. That's a series that started with Canelo Alvarez, Teofimo Lopez. We've seen guys that have gone from Boxeo Telemundo, even Mayweather, Trinidad, guys like that fought on that series and have moved on to have become world champions and have great careers. So I commend you for making your pro debut on a tough circuit. Harry, as you continued and you pursue your professional boxing career, you stand at 3-1. You fight at 154 pounds, the junior middleweight weight class. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. As you are pursuing your career, what are some of your short-term goals?
Well, my short-term goal right now is to get up to the more rounds. So I feel more comfortable doing more rounds than the shorter rounds. So going to get into the 6 to 8, rounders. If I can get to the 10 rounds as soon as possible, that'd be good. For me, for my style of fighting, I do better more round, more comfortable. I can work more. I can take the guy, apart. So most people are willing to, rely on their strength or speed. I work on my using my mind, my eyes, and just taking people apart. Some are similar, like would say Lomachenko, but just more aggressive, more physical with it. Not just point wise, but just taking people apart, mentally and spiritually first, and then going for that kill. So other than that, a belt, one of those. Short end band, an NBA or a IBF or a short, a very, very local belt. That'll be something good to have just to get me started, just to get my name out there and get the ranking a little bit higher. So then I can have those chances, opportunities for bigger and better things later on down the line.
Yeah, and you have a fight coming up, Undisputed Promotions, November 14th. Is that correct?
Correct.
And is that for an NBA belt?
No, that is just a 6-round fight.
Okay.
Against a Robert Burwell, and that's just it's just a 6-round fight. I was offered before for a belt fight, but I don't have enough experience yet, enough fight. So that's another thing is getting enough fights under my belt. So when those opportunities do come arise to get a belt, I'm able to jump on it with what I have. At this time, I don't have enough professional fights to do this. So when I get that, then I'll be able to take those opportunities when they come up.
That's awesome. A great goal to have. You want to get to the point where you're able to fight for a regional belt and continue to push forward with your career. Harry, as you look at your career right now at 3-1, you're at the Dead Game Fight School. Talk to us about your relationship with the gym, how you ended up at Dead Game Fight School, and your relationship with your coach, Michael Knight.
So I ended up there from another coach. His name was Juan, and he suggested going to the Dead Game Fight to get a better experience, to get more rounded. So there I trained with, of course, my main coach Michael Knight, and then Julian also. We worked there and we worked the training. I was better experience with Michael Knight experience with, because he not just do boxing, he also does mixed martial art. So having that same background as I do with an understanding of both sport kind of helps, because the style I do is a little mixture of both. If you watch how I fight, I don't fight like a typical boxer whatsoever. And that's stems from the background with the martial art. So him understanding that we can work together very well on, getting a game plan and, really capitalizing the style of the way I fight with, the way I move, the way I, how to take people apart. So I mean, at the gym is a great experience. It is a big giant family. We all work together. We just, we coexist harmonically with no issue whatsoever. And the training there is intense. It's not an AC gym, it's a hot gym. So when you go in there, you're gonna work and you're gonna sweat. That's guaranteed.
That's awesome. So let's give a shout out to professional boxing coach Michael Knight. And Michael's actually gonna chime in and say hello. There you go, Michael. We in studio here at Snapwell Studios in Orlando. We're so happy to have Harry Cruz, Michael Knight, and Julian Borrero join us in studio. Now, Harry, what would you like to share with other fighters? You talked about the gym you're at. What is a message to other fighters that you have out there that are interested in the sport of boxing?
So something I would like to share with, boxing, something is if you have a goal, stick with it. Like, honestly, and that's one thing I learned from mixed martial art is not just discipline, but just the tenacity, just to continue. Like, you have that will. You have to have something and you go for it. If you give up on that, I mean, everything else is going to fall apart. And that's not just in boxing. The discipline aspect goes for all things in life. If, the quote of, do or do not, there is no try, it's really true. If you really want to make it work on time, you can get up earlier. If you don't want to make it work on time, you're going to get up late. So the biggest thing is, you got to be disciplined. If you want it, you got to always just practice it and do it and be consistent with it. There's just like if you want to lose weight, your diet has to be consistent, and you have to dedicate yourself to that. You have the discipline to say, no, I don't need that snack, or no, I don't need to do that. And there's sacrifice in this sport, in this world. There's a lot of sacrifice, and that's part of discipline. And that's not only in boxing, but in any aspect of your life. If you want, a wife or kids, you're gonna have to sacrifice your friends or this or something you want to do what you need. And that's with anything in life. So my message to people is just, in anything in life, you have discipline and be consistent with it, because if you do that, you're going to achieve the goal that you sought out for.
A very direct message from Harry Cruz. Now, Harry, your nickname, the Dragonfly. Talk to us about how that came about and what it means to you.
So, for me, if you do know, dragonflies move a lot. So in the ring, I do like to move a lot. And one day I was sparring with Josh, one of the previous owner of Dead Game Fight Go, and he's like, you couldn't hit me. And it's like, man, you move you're there and then you're gone like a dragonfly. I'm like, I kind of like that. And for that, it stuck with me. So I'm like, okay, I'm gonna use that. And I looked, nobody has that, and then I went with it. And then my coach Knight always makes fun of me, calling like Dragonfly Jones from Martin. So that's pretty funny itself, though.
That's a good one. I like it. And you have a unique style, Harry. And that style, you say, comes back from your martial arts background. Essentially, the movement, a lot of head movement. It's kind of a herky-jerky style. I've seen it. It's quite unique. Is that where it stems from, your martial arts background, or?
Yes, it kind of stems from that, and because my father is, He's an older gentleman, so he really watches and studies old style of boxing, and so does Michael. Now he really studies the old style boxing. So not just come martial arts, but it's stuff that you don't see no more that people done back in the old days, back in the 50s and 60s. Back in the Rocky Marciano time and all those type of guys, those type of way of fighting. That the movement, that the consistency, that pressure. That most guys are word now to mean more pretty than actually fighting.
Yeah, it's a very unique style. Who would you say your style emulates mostly today?
My coach will always say that I represent more of an Aaron Pryor than anybody else. Anybody like today. I mean, my favorite is always Manny Pacquiao because he's a lefty just like I am, and I try to imitate that. But we're kind of a little bit in between the different type of style. But if I was saying somebody of a world champion, I said they're close to Aaron Pryor with the weird angles, able to switch it up, able to just come in very awkward, coming with a lot of punches
and a motor. I would say you have a heck of a motor. I've seen a couple of your fights. You continuously come forward, and you're very aggressive. And honestly, man, I haven't seen a lot of guys out there that have the same motor as you. You're constantly moving. You're quite aggressive, and it's really a fun thing to watch. So I commend you for your skill set. And as you pursue, you have this is your 5th upcoming fight at Orlando Live Event Center, I believe, on the 14th of November. How excited are you about that fight?
I'm very excited. It's something I wanted to go up more in round. It's somebody, is going to make me a good fight, make me a better person from this experience. So I'm super excited for this upcoming fight, and I just hope, people come up and come watch.
Definitely. It's the Orlando Live Events Center, obviously in Orlando, Florida. Undisputed Promotions coming up. November 14th, Harry Cruz takes on Robert Burwell. Tough opponent, tough fight. It will be a very good card they're putting on there, like I said, in Orlando, Florida. Who is Harry Cruz outside the ring?
So Harry Cruz outside the ring, you won't expect it, but a very country kind of person. So actually, I live a little bit outside of Jacksonville. I live in Middleburg. So again, when I come back to saying if people wanted to, I drive an hour every day one way to go to work and go to the gym, and then drive another hour back from home. And, because I'm dedicated to sport. So where I live is very country. I live around a lot of trees. There's all kind of animals. Like the road is not even paved where I live at. It's like a dirt road. So it's very 1 acre land. It's country. So I like living, in by nature. I tend to my chickens. I tend to my animals. So I just, very serene. I'm a pacifist outside the ring. I don't. I'm a very cordial person, very just calm, loving nature, But other than that, my life really is boxing now. When you transition from an amateur to a boxer, you got to be committed 100%. So before my job or anything, the boxing comes first because that's my dream. And I'm not going to let my dream go over something that I can be replaced. So other than in the boxing, I spend my free time, in nature and doing things, activities like that. Not too dangerous because I can't get too hurt, but I do things to just enjoy the little things in life. The walks, the nature, the sun, just and just sit back and relax.
That's really neat. You have the Golovkin switch, I call it. A lot of guys, when you hear the cage close or they get in between the ropes and they get inside of the ropes, they have that switch. And I've seen it. So I commend you for that. Not everybody has that. You're able to separate. You're in the ring and outside of the ring, and that's what we'd like to share on the Sunday Sit Down series. Again, we're joined today by Harry Cruz. So what's something most people don't know about you, Harry?
So something a lot of people know me that see me that I'm a vegetarian. So I actually don't eat meat. I've been almost 5 years since I eat meat, and that's due to the medical condition that some of the meat does to me that makes me very, very sleepy, like narcoleptic. So I don't eat it. So a lot of people look at me, oh, you look strong, stuff like that. You must be eating a lot of that beef. No, it's all veggie power. It's all plant-based power. So people are like, oh, okay. They don't expect that looking at me that, especially me, a Latino descent, like how can a Puerto Rican give up on me? Yeah, where's the penne at?
So are you a good cook or what?
Yes, I cook for myself almost every day. Actually, before a fight, like now, I cook for myself every day. I intermittent fast, and actually, I went to school for for nutritionists. So I'm very really into about my nutrition. I know all the details. So when I get ready for a fight, I literally cook everything I have. Nobody, I don't go out eating until I cook everything myself. It's all organic and the most healthiest things to get the right kind of nutrition I need for a fight.
That's very important and something that we've seen, especially I see it, I don't want to say in boxing as much, but I know in MMA, you see these guys, once they get to even before they get to the top level, they're really vested in that. That's so important. And it's just an aspect, even in boxing, that we're probably not talking about as much into the last 5 to 10 years, that really nutrition, how much of a role you would think professional athletes would be focused on that from day one. But then you hear the stories of guys that are still eating McDonald's and they're still eating certain types of food, even as professional athletes at the top level. And you're like, wow, that's crazy.
And I mean, I seen it myself when I had my first pro fight with Telemundo. Right after we went in, people went to the buffet and were drinking soda and eating cakes. I'm like, so you just broke a fast, and the first thing you're gonna put in your body is some carbonated, sugary drink and some some junk instead of putting some nutrition in you and to get the nutrition you need for your body to gain the strength and all all the nutrition you need back from being so long without food. And so people, it's an aspect just like anything else, people don't take for granted. And with that being said, it exercise only 20% of it. The rest, 80% of it is or 70% is your diet, and then your rest. So in the last couple of years, it's been more science proving it. People are taking a note, but even with that, people still want to do what they want to do, even at the top level, because there's a lot of, you said leaving the top level, they're not disciplined that, and once they fight, they blow up 30, 40 pounds, right. And then they're dying to try to get back down to the weight, and sometimes they don't even make the weight.
Yeah, it's true. So what do you usually walk around at?
I used to walk around close to 170.
Okay. So your weight cut's probably 10, 15 pounds max the majority of the time.
Correct.
That's awesome. So speaking about bad food, what's your favorite food, man?
Bad food or good food?
Okay, bad for you, but tastes good.
It has to be potato chips. Like I can't, it's hard to give rid of the potato chip. That's my biggest thing. I have a bag, of just some, and not bad like sun chips or something like that. But I love potato chips. And that gelato.
Gelato, oh yeah, the gelato ice cream, man. That's always that's a bad one for me over the years, man. My brother introduced it to me years ago, and I was like, "Ooh, this is gonna be bad." So yeah. The ice cream's a killer for sure. So Harry, as you wrap up today, and you've shared your story thus far as your professional boxing career, talk to us a little bit about your family.
So, my family, most of them live in Puerto Rico. Well, the only ones that moved over here was my mother and my father because the base closed down in Puerto Rico, so we moved over here. So, most of the time, I go to my parents' house and stuff and hang out with them and spend time with them and my parents. But all my brothers and sisters, my uncles, my aunts, my nephew, and nieces are still in Puerto Rico. So I stay in contact the most I can over the phone and FaceTime and all that like that. But most of my time is spent, with my family, my mother and my father. I have, I'm not married. I have no kids right now. So this is probably opportunity now to take, for the boxing career to just go ahead and just, push for it before I get any of that kind of stuff. So this way I can get out the way because, when you're a family man, you have to sacrifice a lot of things for that. So I'm not ready for that sacrifice just yet.
Definitely. It's a big step in another direction outside of boxing if you end up with a family. So as far as Puerto Rico, you said Fajardo? Is that how you pronounce it?
Puerto Rico.
Okay. So that's where you were born and grew up. Now, as far as going back to the island, when's the last time you were back on the island?
Oh, I got to say about almost 6 years ago.
Okay.
Yeah, it been some time. I prefer not to go too much back there. Just with everything's going on, I don't want to be a burden to nobody. Everybody's already struggling as it is. So, I do what I can for them. But at the meantime, until everything's a little bit better over there, I'll wait to going back because it's just been one catastrophe after another over there.
It's been a rough stretch.
Yes.
Between 2015 and now, obviously with Hurricane Maria and then obviously with the global pandemic. It's been very difficult for many people. And we look forward at Team Apparel Boxing and MMA to teaming up with you and the Dead Game Fight School, obviously with Michael Knight, Josh Ruckers, and Julian Borrero, your coaches, to teaming up with you guys in the future to do work in Jacksonville through the community as well as in Puerto Rico. So, we have an open door policy, and we look forward to having you in the gym, Harry, fairly soon, hopefully.
Yes, I mean that'd be a great opportunity, and like I said, I have plenty of family in Puerto Rico. So if we go to Puerto Rico, I know where I'm going to sleep, so I'm good. And they'll love Puerto Rico, so that's not an issue going there. And I appreciate having the offer of an open door. And like I said, if you guys ever need to come up, our door is just as open as you are.
And I appreciate that. I really do, Harry. And I'm sure in the future we'll be in one or the other's gyms. And I look forward to that and working with the Dead Game Fight School and Michael Knight, great person, great coach, as well as Josh Ruckers and Julian Borrero. What a story of your coach, Julian Borrero. And talk to me about your relationship with him.
So I came to him he's a very good person, not just technical aspect, but, really to get you ready for a fight. Like his exercise, he gets you in shape. So from his experience with the Cuban, they an Olympian, they had different exercises that is very strange to us. So we're not used to seeing. So, but they're very effective. They work on getting the body right, the correct way, and then losing dropping that weight, and just giving strength to different muscles that usually don't work on other times. So he's very good for that, and good for just any kind of help you need. If you just technical, he'll be there and watch. Him and Michael Knight are really a good team together. So they both support me, and they make sure I don't slack off. So if one's turning his head, the other one's watching. So it's like I'm being watched all the time. So I can't be no slack off whatsoever in the gym.
That's awesome. Focused energy. You have a great career ahead of you. Harry Cruz, professional boxer out of Jacksonville, Florida, joining me today on the Sunday Sit Down series. Harry, what's your message to those out there that are struggling during these tough times?
I just keep your head up. I mean, there's others that are suffering more, and it just be thankful that you're alive, and and just keep faith. Gotta make sure everything will come through. Like you just have to just look up and just keep pushing forward, because this is hard time, just like with the Great Depression and other things that we might see. This is just one hurdle you have to get over, and just keep pushing. And just look going forward, because as a professional boxer, I had fights lined up, I had different things lined up, and then it come through. Instead of just soaking my own self pity, I just moving forward, and opportunities presented themselves, and I took them. So it's just looking forward, because if you're looking down, you're never going to see opportunities in front of you. If you're looking forward, you will see those doors open up, and you can walk right through them. So just keep looking forward. It's going to get better. It's not the end of the world. You're still breathing. You can get up, and if you can get up and move, you can make a difference, and that's all that matters.
That's well said, my friend. Making a difference. That's a big thing. Between what you're sharing and what we do at Team Apparel Boxing and MMA Gym, we have a community service project coming up. I've also talked to your head coach, Michael Knight, about a future, possibly in Christmas time, doing a community service project up in Jacksonville. So we look forward to working with you guys and moving forward in that and making a difference in our communities. I appreciate your time today, Harry. Thank you so much for joining me.
I'm grateful to be here and happy to share my time with you.
Appreciate it, my friend. And I look forward to your next fight. Harry Cruz, professional boxer out of Dead Game Fight School in Jacksonville, Florida.